Hi, welcome to Feminism on Trial. It's been a while since I made a video. Things have been fine. I'm fine. A lot of changes in my life. But for the most part, what I've been doing is I've been thinking about how do I want to proceed? Because the things with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard were pretty easy to tackle because most people were on the same page. People finally saw that, men can be abused. I mean, they saw that Johnny Depp could be abused. I don't think they took it to the grander scale to understand that, men get abused all the time. So unfortunately, it didn't have that kind of traction. But what happened with that was I've been YouTube stunted for a very long time, and honestly, for the longest time, I just did not understand the value of YouTube. And certainly during the pandemic, I understood that there were other news sources than what you get from regular television, so that opened my mind a bit. And then with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, obviously that was really the only place that you could get information. And I mean, you get information from the regular television, but you couldn't get accuracy at all. It was completely biased. And so, and where I was living, I actually didn't have TV, which was a total blessing, because as much downtime as I have due to the great monster known as MS, I have a lot of downtime, and it's not always a case where I have the energy or I'm looking for words now, so it's perfect. The cognition, I suppose you could say, to just sit down and read and that kind of thing, or I have a headache or my eyes hurt or my eyes are blurry, blah, blah, blah. You don't want to hear about that, neither do I. So, there's some screen time. Well, the Canadian truckers kind of got me. I was watching that. I was born in Canada. So I was watching that, and then went straight into Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and then ended up following a lot of people on YouTube because they were covering Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Everything from LawTube, which is a bunch of lawyers, different lawyers, who covered cases and sometimes pop culture, sometimes crime, whatever, and they explain it to law nerds, which I guess I'd consider myself that. I find it fascinating to follow law and also the psychology of it all. Speaking of which, that led me to behavioral analysis. People who were basically watching, say, Amber Heard and Johnny Depp and analyzing the behavior, which is right up my alley to just basically study humans. I feel like I'm an alien from another planet that is here to study your ways and like what makes people tick and why do they do the things that they do, etc., etc. And this is a long-winded way, and I know that men just love long stories from women. It's like, please put this on fast mode. It's like, when is she going to get to the point? The point is, I saw more of, say, Sandman and Better Bachelor. And that led me to see Andrew Tate. And of course, I had opinions then, and I have opinions now, and no, I have not seen everything he's put online, everything he's done. I haven't seen most of it. But I don't think I need to see all of his content to formulate the opinions that I have. I watched, it's on YouTube. The National Coalition for Men Chicago chapter did sort of a reaction. They didn't show the video and then react to it. They just basically all gave their opinions on Andrew Tate and what they thought of him. And I agree with a lot of that. Obviously, they were like, well, he doesn't represent us, etc. I'm not going to speak for them. If you guys want to watch that video, It's easy to find: National Coalition for Men, Chicago chapter, Andrew Tate reaction. Search that, you'll find it. But for the but I have issue with it. I have issue with. Here's my issue, and it's not Andrew Tate that I want to talk about right now. It's how far do I want to go? That's why I've taken a pause, because I thought, I have some controversial things to say. I'll give you an example. In one of Andrew Tate's videos, he says if he had to choose, sort of like gun to his head, if he had to choose if he was going to have a female pilot or a male pilot, he would choose having a male pilot, because females tend to be more emotional, more reactive, not as good in a crisis situation, sort of like the one you would have in an airplane. And he's called misogynistic for that. But I watched that video and I said I would choose the man too, based on science, based on truth, based on that he's right about where men excel and where women excel. He's not saying there are no good female pilots. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that if he had to pick randomly out of groups, like if you had to pick man or woman as your pilot, now you might pick like the worst male pilot. He might be an alcoholic. He might be terrible. He might have finished bottom of his class. Totally get that. But we're not looking at that. We're looking at like sort of like bell curves, it's like who is likely to be the best suited in a crisis situation flying an airplane. And based on statistics and proven characteristics of men and women, even if it's a slight different, even if it's not a huge difference, we're more alike than we are different. Pick a man. And so would I. And so that's an example. And I started thinking to myself, can I not say that? Now, my very first videos, I didn't give a crap what I said, because I was like, nobody's watching this anyway. And I'm not saying I've got thousands of subscribers. I don't. But I'm now aware that people are watching. I'm now aware, like, for some reason I care now about the consequences of what I say. But I had to take a minute and go, number one, am I going to be true to myself and step forward and say what I really think? Or am I just going to toe the line and say, no, he's a misogynist, and maybe he is, but that doesn't mean everything he says is wrong. And I don't think he's a men's rights activist. I think he's an opportunist. I think he just wants to, say controversial things and get noticed and have a career on YouTube. And I think he's jumping on a bandwagon of, sort of what they're calling like alpha men and all that. I think that's totally what he's doing. And so I think this is another thing, I'm taking a pause. Like, should I say this? I think to do a reaction video from the National Coalition for Men, I think was a mistake, because the National Coalition for Men is a classy organization, and they don't need to lower themselves and give Andrew Tate the time of day. He's just trying to, you did exactly what he wanted you to do. He wants you to talk about him, which I'm doing right now. It's weird because I'm talking about him. But I think that's why I'm doing it now and not then. I really wanted to think about, do I have the guts? Am I willing to come out and say, no, I disagree. I disagree with giving him the time of day, as far as the, arguing with him or disagreeing with him or calling him all these names. That's the kind of attention he wants. But what I will say is he's right about women having certain tendencies. And I'm not going to get into all that now. I was trying to just use that as an example of, I agree with that. And so how far am I going to take it? How far am I willing to go? How controversial? I'm not out here to be controversial for the sake of being controversial. That's never been my plan. My plan was to get on here and say, hey, I see a lot of women out there who are like, yeah, I don't like feminism, and meanwhile, like, they're a feminist. You know, you're like, let's define some terms, kind of a deal, you know. And the other thing, and here's another thing. I have felt ostracized by the men's rights movement because I come at this with a Christian mentality. I come at this with a biblical mentality. And I have been struggling the last few months because I didn't want to put anything out there that hid that. Because that's not, for me, that's not truth. Where do I get my point of view? Where do I decide what's the proper thing, and why are we in the mess we're in? And being a Christian and being a biblical Christian, and I mean that word gets thrown around, the word Christian. It doesn't mean like, oh, I go to church and I this or whatever. I don't go to church. I'm not going to a 501c3 organization that basically feminism has infiltrated. And that's another video that I want to make because it needs to be said. But again, how far was I willing to go? Was I willing to call out Christians? Was it Christians? Was I willing to call out churches and say, you're a bunch of liars? You know, you're actually one of the biggest problems. Am I willing to go there? And so basically the last few months has been like, okay, I got to get the courage. I got to get the courage to just stand up against these things and not be afraid to be the lone voice in all of this. Because a lot of my views, nobody shares. You know, this will probably just, go nowhere. But I've always, ever since I was a little girl, I've always been like, I'm going to say it anyways, even if people aren't going to listen. It just irks me if I don't. So I'm going forward with my Christian background, which guides me. And so that's going to come up, and I will refer to it. And you don't have to be a Christian to see that the things that I say make sense and are true. When I show how feminism has ruined society. And another thing that got me with all the behavior analysis, which I love, I was watching, not so much with Amber Heard, not so much with her. No, they got her pretty well pegged. But there were some other females that these behavior analysts, that sounds wrong. The behavior analysis psychology guys were analyzing, and I was like, no, you're wrong. And the reason they're wrong, and I'm gonna cover it, don't worry, from the woman that was accused of cheating in poker to, there's a few more. I was like, you're analyzing her as if she were a man, and the problem is you are not taking into account female nature. And female nature, I don't think I've even used that term. If I have, it's just been in passing. But I want to talk about it. I do. I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it as it relates to me, as I've discussed it with other women, that we could be manipulative. And that manipulation comes so easy to us that we actually have to make the cognitive and conscious decision to not be manipulative. For example, today. I went to the bank, and there were some tellers. They were female tellers, and they weren't very nice. They were not very nice. I went in to get a money order because, I mean, maybe I'm old. I'm 45, and to me, well, banks do money orders. Duh. And I needed to get an ATM card, so just go in, two birds, one stone. I walk in. The lady on the left, I'm like far away. It's a big bank. There's no other customers are in there, just me. I walk in, lady on my left at that big teller desk says to the ladies in the other desk, "Can somebody help her? Can one of you help her?" And I was like, well, I don't know, the way I was raised, you don't talk about people like they're not there. You might say, "Hi, good morning, ma'am. Do you mind stepping to that desk? I'm in the middle of something." That's what I would have said. You know? No, it was, "Can one of you help her?" My grandmother is British, and I remember, like, if you were in the room and you referred to somebody as she, and the person was in the room, which I accidentally did as a kid, I referred to my nanny. That was what we called our grandmother in England. I said she, blah, 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 and my grandmother said, "Who's she then? The cat." And I was like, "What? I don't understand. Like, I'm getting raised in America. I don't know what this means." But you just don't do that. You just don't. Like, this is the problem with pronouns. This is the real problem with pronouns. And we got so much to talk about with that stuff too. And I'm going to get real about that. Stuff got so controversial. But anyway, I digress. So, lady on the left says, "Can one of you guys help her?" And I smiled. My smile, you guys know I smile all the time. And I look at the ladies on my right and I said, "Yeah, can one of you all help her?" And I don't think any of them got it. They kind of were just like, "She being rude?" But I was smiling, so I don't really see how they could take it wrong. However, that's not the problem, but that's just the intro. So you kind of have to set the scene. So I walk forward to the ladies on my right. I walk up, and there's a woman standing there, and I say, "Hello, I need to buy a money order, please." And here's her. "We don't sell money orders." And I said, "But you're a bank. We don't sell money orders. You got to go to Checks for Cash or Walmart or whatever." And I said, "Oh, I'm aware of the other places that sell them. I thought since you were a bank, you might sell them." "We don't do that. We don't do that." And I'm just like, did I do something? Like, why do you hate me all of a sudden, right? And the other ladies are just kind of like there. And I said, "Okay, well, I'd like to get an ATM card for the new account that I opened." And the lady that's opened my account, I'm using the word lady very loosely, the woman who helped me open my account, which at that time she was perfectly lovely, she said, "Oh yeah, when she was here before opening her account, the machine was down." And so the lady who's helping me is like, "Oh, our machine's down. You'll have to go to the branch and da-da-da-da." There was no, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry. We actually don't sell money orders." I know, that's weird, right? I'm so sorry about that. But I think the closest place is such and such. Like, that's what I would have said. And then with the ATM card, there's no like, "I'm so sorry. The machine's down. We don't know what's wrong with it. It's just, I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. Is there anything else I can help you with today?" None of that. It was like, "Get out of here, trash." I mean, and I'm not the complainer. I'm not the Karen. I'm not the one that's like, "I need to speak to your manager," or like, "How dare you treat me like this?" Like, I don't have an inferiority complex. Like, I'm friendly to everybody and stuff. But this, she had it in for me. She was like, I'm not. Anyway, where was I going with this? I had a point. I did have a point, and I'll think of it. Female nature. Oh yeah, I remembered my point. So I didn't know if I got really angry Like, did I overreact? Did I misread? Because it was so, like, is this happening? Like, I was like raging mad, but I was still like, well, thank you. You guys have a good day. And I left. And as I'm leaving the bank, I'm just like, you know, and I get to the car and I drop an F-bomb. It's like, and my dog's like, okay, I don't know what you're dealing with. So we went to the next place. And then I came home. And after I got home, I talked to my man, same man, by the way, which I have more to talk about him too. And anyway, I talked to him and I told him the situation. And he was like, no, you need to speak with the manager. That's not the proper way to conduct customer service. And I said, well, I just wanted to double check because I was really angry and I didn't want to pull a whole borderline personality syndrome situation and overreact or what have you. And I was really angry in the moment. If those ladies thought they could take me down a peg, they chose the wrong one. I can smile and I can be nice, but I can also let you have it. And you know, I used to be a feminist. I had a sharp tongue. And they would have to go home and look up words in the dictionary to learn the vocabulary that I used on them because I would have torn them up. So I didn't. I walked away because I thought, maybe it's me. Anyway, I talked to my guy and he was like, no, you really need to talk to the manager and make sure you do it soon because you want to know like who it was, who was there, etc. So I look at my folder with my bank information, and I see the bank that branch manager is a man, and right away, without even trying, see, this is confession time. Without even trying, I thought, it's a man. That's good. You know why? Why did I all of a sudden think it's a man? That's good. Because I have more influence when I talk to him. If I talk to a female, and these are females that work there, it's going to be the sisterhood. I know that to be the case. And two, if I talk to the man and I tell him my story, I know how to tell it in such a way that he will be on my side and it will be even more effective. And then, I mean, we're talking milliseconds now. I think maybe I should go down there. I'd rather talk to him in person. And I think we all know why I would rather talk to him in person. And my man, we're all on the phone, right? He's like, why would you rather talk to him in person? And I don't know if he didn't know or if he just wanted to see if I'd say it. I said, because I'll have more effect on him in person. And I said, isn't that awful? Isn't that awful? I keep almost saying my man's name by accident. I just call him MGTOW. Isn't that awful, MGTOW man, that I would want to see him in person because I immediately know that I can manipulate him. And my brain is already crafting the conversation, crafting my mannerisms. It's not even hard. It would be hard not to. It was the initial instinct. It was the go-to. And I just happen to be self-aware that that's what it would be. Most women would just, be like, I need to go down there and talk to him, in person. And they wouldn't even realize that that's actually what they're doing, is that they can manipulate. And I also knew if I start talking to him and I start talking about how these women treated me and spoke to me, etc., I know what will happen. My eyes will become watery and I will tear up. One tear may fall just from saying it. And even saying it to a man, that reaction is going to come out of me. And in the moment, I would also be well aware of how effective that might be. And let's take it a step further. And I know some of you, especially you women, are like, oh, well, you're just a bitch and that's why. I'm like, no, you're all like that. And you know it, you're not admitting it. So anyway, the other thing is, what's my objective? Well, I want to go and and just explain that, you know, the customer service isn't up to par and I would like it to improve and I'd like to not be spoken to that way, and just to let you know how your front office tellers are behaving. But is that really my intention? I'd like to say yes. And probably 5 years ago, I'd say, yeah, that's what I'm doing. It's the right thing to do. He should know. Well, if you're honest with yourself and you're a female, and if you're a guy and you're watching, you already know too, because it's probably happened to you. I want to go and get those chicks fired. I want to go. This is just honest. Like, it's not really what I want, but like inside, I want to go there and freaking destroy them. I want to go there and tell him these things, and I want them to be like, I want him to have a meeting with them and be like, look, a couple of you, especially you one lady who was the one talking to me and being the rudest, like, I want her fired. Now, does she deserve to be fired over that? If I'm thinking rationally, probably not. But my female brain, as I have come to refer to it, wants her fired. That's terrible. That's terrible. I'm not proud of that. These are things that I haven't said about female nature, about what it really is, and how we need to get honest about it. And I've got real life stories from myself and from other people. I've been talking to other people. I've been sort of researching what are their lives really like, and what have they really experienced, including to talking to other women. And one of my friends actually said, oh yeah, we have to try not to be manipulative. We're really good at it. You know why we're good at it? Because women are supposed to take care of babies and toddlers and young children. You have to be manipulative to deal with 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 6-year-olds. You have to figure it out because you have to sort of play the game with the children. That is why we have that gift. But it's been perverted, and perverted doesn't necessarily mean in a sexual way, although, you know, that's happened too. It's just run amok in society to the point where, you know, I feel like somebody was rude to me, so I'm like, I'm gonna get them fired. Like, that's terrible. I am not, like I said, I am not proud of that. These are things that I didn't know if I was prepared to go there. Have you seen the movie The Untouchables, where Sean Connery is sort of Kevin Costner's, who plays Elliot Ness, Sean Connery is sort of his mentor. And he says, what are you prepared to do? Okay, that's like a Russian accent. That was terrible. I'll just say it normally. What are you prepared to do? That's what he asks Elliot Ness. And I'm not Elliot Ness. But the last few months, I've been like, okay, what are you prepared to do? Are you prepared to be honest? Are you prepared to say the truth? Are you prepared? Here's the kicker. If you're still with me, I'll edit this down so it's not so much of me rambling. But I've got personal stories, stuff that's happened to me that is relevant to, as it's known in some circles, gender politics. I've got personal stories. I'm looking down at my notebook like, there they are. So I was like, well, remember that video I made, I don't know, was it a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, how I got burned. And I made that video because I was like, well, here's an example. And I was delicate and I was like careful not to call specific people specific things, but I recognize that people watching would say, oh, that's a this and he's a this. And so I said, I know you will think this is a beta guy, and I know you will see it this way, but I didn't say it. However, didn't matter, and that relationship was lost because she couldn't get past it. And I didn't take it down, and I didn't apologize. So that made me a little gun shy. And so am I prepared to share those personal stories? No names, but I think personal stories are quite powerful. You can look up statistics other places. You can learn that men are the victims of domestic violence on the same rate as women are. You can look up that women initiate 80% of divorces. You can look this stuff up. I am not the information channel. That's not me. I am the let's get real and let's be personal and let's really talk about it. Not in numbers, not in graphs. Not that information isn't necessary, but let's go deeper than that. And let's go to the root of this problem and let's call it out. That's why it's feminism on trial. Let's call it out where it is, where it lurks, where it's poisoning, which is everywhere. But let's see how. Let's examine that. And if that comes to my own life or people I know, I decided I'm here for it. I decided I'll go there because I think you guys know, I'm a horse girl, and I have worked with horses and stuff, and we're a little different. If you've ever known an equestrian, we're a little different. And I don't do things half-ass. And I came to this sort of precipice where I was like, well, are we going to do this? Or are we not going to do this? Are we prepared to alienate people? Are we prepared to piss people off? Are we prepared to talk about God and the Bible and the roots of all of this? Am I prepared for that? And doesn't matter if I am or if I'm not, because it needs to be said. I know it's the truth, and I'm either gonna do this or I'm not. And not isn't an option. There's one thing I've never been good at. Well, a couple things I've never been good at. And one of them is quitting. And the other one is doing something half-ass or dishonestly. So buckle up, because it's gonna get real. It's gonna get real. And people might subscribe, and they might not, but it doesn't matter. I just have to do this. So I hope you'll join me. This is a revitalization of sorts. I'm not going to hold back now. That's what's been happening. I've been holding back. And buckle up. So we'll see you in the next, don't knock the camera over. We'll see you in the next videos. And thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe so we can, share this with other people and get a good conversation going. See you next time.